Hello, Professor Kent Lee here, and welcome to week 3 of Academic English. Today we are going to talk about writing emails, especially formal emails, and this is to prepare you for your next assignment. In your next assignment, you are going to write an email, and we're going to talk about the different components of email today, especially formal emails that you will use in college and in the workplace someday. There is one main handout provided for you. You should follow this handout. It's in the simple text here. And I will also include another secondary handout that you can look at later that has a little bit more detail. But this handout has the examples that we will talk about today. So we're going to talk about formal emails. So first, I want you to think about what makes for formal writing, for formal emails or formal writing in general. How is formal writing, how is a formal email different from maybe an informal writing, an informal email, an email like you might send to a friend, or text message you might send to a friend. How is it different from formal writing, emails, business letters that you might send to a professor, coworker, your boss someday at work? Pause the video and think for a minute. Talk to someone about this. What makes for formal writing? Okay, what makes for formal emails and formal writing? First, before we get into the different types of language that are used, the types of formal expressions, formality is a matter of recognizing status. It's maybe the status difference between you and the other person. You're writing to a professor, you're writing to your boss, you're writing to a manager in your office, and it's the status difference perhaps between you and the other person. But you also might be writing an email to a coworker, or a business letter to a coworker, or someone at the same level as you, but in another office or another department. You're still recognizing the status and dignity, not only of the other person, but of yourself. You're showing that you respect yourself and you believe in yourself enough that you have self-respect and dignity toward yourself as well as toward the other person. It's not like a friendly email or text message where you can be fully open and be honest, fully honest about yourself and your weaknesses, and say, "Oh, I really got drunk last night," or "I really failed that exam." No, you're preserving your dignity as well as the others, and that makes other people feel more comfortable if you show your own sense of dignity, pride, confidence. And that's why it's helpful to maintain a certain social distance, or keeping up your guard. We say keeping up your guard, not being too open, not letting down your guard. So it's about recognizing your own status and dignity and the other person's status and dignity, and maintaining social boundaries that are comfortable for the situation. Not too excessive, not too distant, not aloof, not arrogant or proud. You're maintaining appropriate social and personal boundaries with yourself. So when we say recognizing the other person's status, it's not about putting yourself down too much, especially in Western culture. Maybe it's more common in East Asian culture to kind of try to lower yourself. And that's a cultural difference. Trying to lower yourself too much, for example, saying, "I know I'm not a good student, but I work really hard." Putting yourself down like that wouldn't work so well in Western culture if you're emailing a foreign professor or a foreign client in your company. You recognize your own status too. So This leads to particular language differences between informal and formal writing. Of course, higher level vocabulary, longer words, less common words, and often these words are from Latin. Vocabulary, for example, is a word from Latin. By the way, little note, we don't say vocabularies in English. It's vocabulary because it's a group or set noun. Vocabulary means a whole set of words, a whole set of words in a language, a whole set of words that you know. You wouldn't say vocabularies unless you're talking about different kinds of vocabulary, like Korean vocabulary and English vocabulary. That's usually, if you want the countable word, it's words, you know, fancier words or fancier vocabulary. And one thing you will probably have to figure out in college is maybe some expressions are more formal than others. And you may have learned English expressions without really learning whether they're formal or informal. And it just helps to read different kinds of things on your own and kind of realize, oh, that's usually used in more formal contexts or more informal context. Also, more complex sentences. And this is something that you'll be doing in this class this semester and next semester, is improving your writing, your sentences. And more complex sentences tend to lead to better, smoother flow, especially in formal writing. In informal writing, you can use shorter sentences, simple short sentences. But in formal writing, you have better flow. If your sentences are too short, it has a flow we call choppy. It's like chopping something, or chopping vegetables, chop, chop, chop. That kind of chop, chop flow. In formal writing, we like longer, more complex sentences that flow more smoothly. And there are a number of ways we do this, just a few examples. Using coordinating conjunctions to combine phrases, like your typical conjunctions you learn, like for, and, but, or, and such. But also coordinating conjunctions, which are more complex, and things like although, since, because, while, and such, which allow you to form nice complex sentences that flow more beautifully. Other kinds of clauses, what clauses, I'm not sure what happened, that clauses, but I think someone made a mistake. Those kinds of clauses make for nicer flow, nicer sentences. Next, a number of softening expressions, and these kind of achieve a certain indirectness, indirect language. And that's important for, again, maintaining the sort of social boundary and the sense of dignity and respect for yourself and for the other person. And there are a number of kind of softening expressions we could talk about, but just do a few examples. Things that soften statements, possibly. Maybe, I think maybe someone made a mistake here, or that might possibly happen. Things like I think that, I believe that, can soften expressions instead of saying someone made a mistake, someone screwed up. Well, screwed up is kind of slangy. I think someone might have made a mistake here. It's more indirect and soft. Modal condition expressions, if you could do this, if you would do this, this might be a good idea, things like that. If you were, if you could, things like that. Minimizing expressions, like I just wanted to ask you if I could have an extension on the homework, the deadline for the homework assignment, because, you know, I've been really sick, so just wanted to ask if I could have an extension. Euphemisms, these are expressions that soften something kind of bad. So you need to tell your professor you can't come to class because your uncle passed away. You wouldn't if your uncle is someone you respect, of course, you're not going to, well, in Korean you would never say 죽어버렸어요, unless it's somebody you don't like. Oh, that bad old person who went to jail, he finally died, yeah. But if it's like someone in your family, you wouldn't say, oh, in a formal setting, you probably might not say he died. More respectful is he passed away, things like that. Finally, so in these softening expressions, there are sometimes cultural differences. Westerners might be a little more direct. Obviously, in an informal setting, we are more direct. Westerners are. But even in a formal setting, like you're talking to a professor or your boss, who might be a foreigner, we still do this. Sometimes maybe not quite as much as in Korean or Chinese, but we still do this, of course. Finally, some things in emails, maybe business letters, perhaps, expressions of gratitude to the person for taking the time to read this or consider your request. Thank you for considering my request. Thank you for taking your time to read this. Thank you for taking your time to consider my job application. Compliments, and again, we may do this less often in Western culture, in, say, communication, business communication or formal communication. More often in East Asian culture, you might compliment a person. I know you're a very popular professor who is a very good teacher. You might say that maybe in Korean. If I get an email like this, I'm going to think, oh, it doesn't sound very sincere. So keep in mind there are cultural differences in the use of compliments if you don't know the person enough to really, really mean it. Apologies. We can maybe apologize for imposing and taking your time. I'm sorry for sending you all these emails, but I really need to explain my situation or such, why I haven't been able to come to class. I'm sorry that I haven't been able to come to class. I'm sorry I couldn't do the assignment, but I was sick. So expressions of gratitude, apologies, sorry for taking your time with all of this. Those are possible expressions of formality. So nothing wrong with being informal as long as you understand the difference between informal and formal expressions and when to use them. We are maybe more used to informal expressions, very informal expressions in social media and texting, and some people kind of complain or worry it's gone too far. Not necessarily a problem as long as people understand what's appropriate for the context. Examples in this slide, the one person says, see you like see you later, I'll text you later. Or, hi, how are you? Why not see a film together tomorrow at my place? Sorry, but tomorrow I've lots to do. Thanks anyway. By the way, are you free later tonight? Fancy a drink. That's British style for would you like a drink? Fancy a drink? Great. I'll wait for you at DA Odeon. It must be I think it's a pub or something. Don't be late. I'll come ASAP, as soon as possible. See you then. So notice all these abbreviations. These are very informal, slangy, or SNS text abbreviations. And you wouldn't want to do that in an email to your boss. So email is important. Maybe you haven't used email much before, but you're now in a time of your life when email will be important. You will need to use email as a student. Professors communicate with students by email. Professors will send you messages by email from time to time and expect students to communicate by email outside of class when necessary. So you can't just say, oh, I didn't get your email. I don't check email very often. That's not going to look good in college, definitely not in the workplace, because adults use email in college, universities, and offices and workplaces. You wouldn't want to say to your boss, sorry, I didn't get the message, I don't do email very much. And your boss is going to say, all right, why are you working here? You're an adult, okay? This isn't just text world anymore. This is professional adult life. You need to use email. You have to check your email every day. That's normal. You would use email for applying for a job, writing to your bosses, your coworkers, managers, clients in your company, writing to professors or school administrators, offices when you have to deal with any school matters. You have a problem with Blackboard, which can happen. It's a buggy system. You have to email the office on this campus that manages the Blackboard. It's the e-learning team at the Gyoso Hakusep Gebal 1, by the way, in case you need to know if you have Blackboard problems. The e-learning team at the Gyoso Hakusep Gebal 1, they are located in the Miryiguan, and they will prefer that you email them if you have Blackboard problems. How formal should you be? It's always better to assume more formal style if you don't know. It's always better, safer to be more formal if you're not sure. In any of these situations, communicating with your professors, with coworkers, clients, your managers and bosses and supervisors at your workplace. Let's look at typical email. This is kind of a email somebody is writing regarding a job interview, a job application. Notice in the left corner there are a few buttons like the CC and BCC we'll talk about in a minute. The email address, your email address, especially if you work in a company, your email address should be something that sounds professional, that reflects your name. Not something like Jedi Knight or sexykitty@gmail.com or girl from New York City @gmail.com. It should resemble your name somehow. The subject line is a nice, formal, simple subject line. It is informative. It tells you maybe a simple phrase, what the subject is about. And it's specific. It's fairly specific. It gives the reader something of an idea what the email is about specifically, not too general like question or something like that. We have the greeting, Dear Ms. Smith. We'll talk about these elements more in a minute. Ms. Smith, so Ms. MS period. That's a formal way of addressing women, whether married or unmarried. We don't distinguish between married or unmarried women anymore in professional or academic context. Also, by the way, a little note about English, formal English. You might have heard people say girls when referring to adult women, like we're going out with the girls tonight. In academic or professional context, that doesn't sound good. It sounds sexist, like you're putting them down. You don't say girls for adult women. You don't say boys for adult males. You would say women, female friends, female coworkers, or something like that. So notice the style of this is pretty formal. It is very enjoyable to speak with you today. Nice formal vocabulary. Job seems like an excellent match. Account management confirmed, desire, enthusiasm, assertiveness, nice formal vocabulary. There's a signature at the bottom, contact information. At least if you're working in a company, contact information in your email signature. The things at the top, in case you don't know, CC is for carbon copy. So this is really old technology. Email was invented in the 1970s, and at that time, if you wanted to make a copy, use something called carbon paper. It was a kind of blue or black paper, so a secretary needs to type a formal letter, and they need to keep a record of the letter. And this was a time when photocopiers were maybe not common in every office, and they needed to make a copy of an important letter as they typed it. So they would put in the typewriter, a piece of paper, carbon paper, another piece of paper, and as they typed it, the carbon paper would make a copy on that second piece of paper. You might have also seen carbon paper in order pads, order forms that used to be used in restaurants. So if you're sending an email, we use this old terminology. You need to send a copy. You're writing an email to somebody, but you want to send copies to other people. So use the CC field for carbon copy. Now BCC is blind carbon copy or back carbon copy. And this is if you want to send copies of emails, but maybe you're sending it to a lot of people, but you don't want all those people to get an email with all of the email addresses of the 20 other people that are being sent copies to this. So back carbon copy or blind carbon copy sends a copy to everybody, but they don't get the list of all the other recipients or receivers of the mail, and it's less messy. Or also, if I'm sending an email to a whole class, I'm emailing you all directly, the first person in the email address, that's going to show up in your email box, and it looks like it's a email to or from, some other student. So I email it to myself, and then I BCC all of the names of the students in the class. It's a much neater way of sending out an email to a lot of people. These are maybe some things you will use when you work in a job later. Parts of an email. Your subject line, as I mentioned, salutation, maybe a pleasantry, and this is like, hi, how are you doing today? Or I hope you had a good weekend. This is maybe more common in East Asian culture, less common in Western culture, so don't be offended if a Westerner, your professor, a Western client emails you and skips the pleasantries. It's less common in Western formal communication. Identifying yourself if the person doesn't know you. Very simply stating the reason for your writing, the reason for this email, so they know what it's about at the first. Then an explanation. Maybe you need to ask for something politely. Then your closing expression of thanks maybe, and signing off, like sincerely. Look at some examples. I've underlined these. The subject line, it's a simple statement. It's clear. It's informative. So something like this, hi, or quick question, may be a little vague, especially in a formal context. A specific request about X or request to schedule a meeting, that's better. Salutations, like a formal term for a greeting. Dear Professor Kitzel, dear Professor Lee. Don't call your professors by their first name. Banmal, don't call your business clients by their first name unless you know them well enough. Maybe if it's a Westerner, a foreigner, and they're okay with that, and they told you just call me, Susan. So a salutation, a more formal salutation is dear so-and-so, and a comma, and a colon. Informal would be hi, hey. Don't mix them, like dear Mr. Alex, or dear Voss, or dear Lee, dear Smith. It sounds kind of military, calling someone by just their last name. Mr. Lee, Professor Lee, something like that. Maybe a pleasantry, again, this is more common in Korean or East Asian culture. Hope you had a good weekend or something like that. Identifying yourself, I'm a student in your class. We professors have dozens or hundreds of students, and you really should identify which class, which section, which bunban or section you're in, and the reason for writing. A simple, clear statement of why you're writing this. Then in the next paragraph, or in the same paragraph, you can have a clearer explanation. Now this is just an example where the student has some questions about format or about the assignments, and that would be fine. This is just an example. This is maybe not the best example because the student is asking This, I'm having trouble with double spacing my MS Word document. Now, that's not something you would ask a professor about. That's something simple. You can do a Google search. How do I change line spacing in MS Word? By the way, for your college assignments, maybe in business, especially when you are doing something in English, one, I don't recommend Hangul Word or HWP for a couple of reasons. One, it doesn't always do English text very nicely. And two, it's kind of a limited program. It's not used outside Korean. And sometimes I've had to do documents in HWP and I find it hard to work with. It works very differently from other word processors. And it's just hard to open if you're maybe dealing with somebody who is a foreigner and doesn't have HWP or isn't comfortable with it. But also HWP only works with Microsoft Windows, the Windows operating system. And there are plenty of people in the world who don't use Microsoft, who don't use Windows. I don't use Windows. I really do not like Windows. So if you get an HWP file, it's hard for me to open. Some people use Macintosh on their personal computers. I use Linux. And actually just HWP, the company does not support other operating systems. They don't make it compatible with Linux or Apple or Macintosh. So for professors, it's really better if you send your assignments, do your assignments in MS Word or LibreOffice, Google Docs, PDF, or something, and make sure it looks nice, because they will have trouble opening HWP files. Anyway, there's a more detailed explanation. I would be grateful, kind of a polite request, which is preceded by a nice kind of indirect expression. I would be very grateful, and a positive expression to come to your office. You're requesting a meeting with the professor. And this is the right way to do it. Maybe suggest some times, or check the person's schedule first and then suggest some times. Then we have a closing. It's kind of an expression of thanks, or maybe I look forward to hearing from you, or it could be, if it's something more involved, I'm sorry for taking your time. I spent an hour in your office asking you about this paper. Sorry for taking your time. Thank you, and all that. So the closing line is often an expression of gratitude, contrition, which is a fancy word for sorry. Sorry for bothering you, acknowledging something. I know this is going to be hard for you, so thank you for your effort and such. Finally, you sign off. Sincerely is common in North American culture. Sincerely, best regards, and actually I'm not so used to best regards. I see it a lot when Koreans write email in English, and that's okay, but in my experience in North America is that sincerely or yours truly, maybe regards, are more common. Informal would be best, or cheers. I like using cheers, actually. Maybe it's a bit semi-formal. It's more British, by the way. And just British expressions to us Americans tend to sound a little more formal, but to British people it's a bit informal. So I like to use it when I'm not being too formal. Notice the paragraphs, clear, readable paragraphs, leaving a line between paragraphs. This is kind of block paragraph style, where you have lines between paragraphs, and this is the norm in business writing. If you write a business letter, you write up a business letter too, it's more readable. Clear paragraphing. You don't hit the line break or the enter key after every sentence. You have paragraphs, 2 or 3 or 4 or more sentences in a clear paragraph. It's a nice block. Skip a space, next paragraph. You don't make every sentence a separate paragraph. So not like this. This is messy and this is hard to read because of the lack of spacing. Let's do an exercise. On your handout, you've got exercise 1. please look at this for a minute. Pause the video, look at this, and find possible problems with the style here. And these are not problems so much with the grammar, but with the style. So talk to somebody about this for a minute, pause the video, and look at this. Okay, so some problems. Hi, Smith. Just calling somebody by their last name, this sounds like military, like you're ordering somebody. Professor Smith, hello, Professor Smith. Eyes have been from the exclamation mark or bang. Not good. Subject, this is problem. What? Problem. I want to meet you. That's a little direct, maybe. I'm having trouble with my survey questions. Okay, fine. Frowny face, or emojis or emoticons, not so good. Very informal, or it's like texting or SNS. I want to meet you Wednesday at 2. It's a little demanding. Consider their time. They're busy too. See you next class. What's with the hearts? Bye. Okay, this is all really informal. This is a better example. Hello, my name is, and I'm writing to ask for an appointment. Okay, that's considering their time and effort. I'm having trouble with the survey questions. That's good. I'm worried that some of my questions aren't clear. That's fine. Would it be possible to attend your office hour? Or would it be possible to come to your office hour? Now, probably with office hours, it's probably okay to show up anyway. But if it's not the regular office hour, you definitely want to ask for an appointment. I look forward to seeing you. Okay, thanks for all your help. Okay, regards, that's better. And ID numbers. When you're writing professors, we have a lot of different sections, Bunban, and different classes. So somewhere in your email, it helps to give your ID number, or at least, even better, your class and section. Which class and section? I mean your academic English class, Monday, Wednesday at noon, or something like that, because we have many sections of the same classes. So these are examples of doing formal email. Okay, so you will receive a message or notice in Blackboard soon, probably an email message via Blackboard about your email assignment. So you're going to be asked to write a formal email. It's I'll give you the topics, possible topic to choose from. It's probably better though if you write it like an email, but save it as like a Word or a word processor document and upload it in Blackboard. And the reason is this is an assignment. And this is the first assignment, the first real assignment of the semester. It's probably better to do it in Blackboard. So I might ask you just to put it in Blackboard. I will probably create an assignment space in Blackboard. And the message will tell you when it is due, and there will be an assignment space. I think you've used the assignment space in Blackboard before, so there will be a space there for you to upload your document. So you're going to write your email, but as a document. One reason is it's better for us to have that as a permanent record of your work, and it's a little easier to grade and give feedback. This is an email assignment, but rather than having you actually email me and I'll be getting 100 emails from you, or your professor getting 100 email assignments from students in different classes, different sections. It's easier to do it in Blackboard. It's easier to say, oh, this is from student so-and-so in my Monday, Wednesday, 12 o'clock class. It's just easier to track all of this stuff and to grade it. All right, that is, I think, all for today. And I will be posting, or an email assignment will be posted in Blackboard soon for you to do with the options you can choose from for the topic of your email. It's going to be something that you might actually write to a professor or something like that. So pay attention to your email, and that will come to you soon. So that is all for today. Thank you, and good luck with your assignment. Goodbye.